Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and with me, I got a full house. Welcome, Mac
Good evening.
and Gio.
What's good, guys?
On today's podcast, we're going to be covering the action from this past weekend of the Premier League, as well. We'll be previewing the second leg of the quarterfinal action of the Champions League. Before we get into it, though, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. But let's dive straight into the title challenge, Mac. Arsenal tied at West Ham this weekend. Not the result Arsenal fans would have been wanting after seeing Man City win their game the day before. How did you see that Arsenal and West Ham game go?
In a lot of ways, it played out very similarly to the Arsenal Liverpool game that happened just the week prior, where Arsenal for the first 30 minutes looked like the far superior team, and there was only one team had really any chance to be able to create any opportunities. They got out to a really good lead early on from both scoring two fantastic goals, great build-up play from the team. The first being through Jesus, and the second being through Odegaard. But it seemed like the separation between some of these teams, between, let's say, from Arsenal to Man City, is where after that lead, are they able to continue to dominate instead of for 30 minutes, 60, 70 minutes, where you can have enough time to see out the rest of the game and not let the other team kind of claw back their way in, which unfortunately for Arsenal, it was back-to-back weeks of the exact same thing, where after that initial domination, the other team's game plan started to come more so fruition, where Aston Villa were able to kind of hit balls high and wide and long, and start to be able to compete one-on-one situations. Arsenal lost a couple battles, and slowly, territorially, West Ham started to come back into the game. And the moment of the match really is the turn of the penalty, I would feel like, if that penalty's not called at that moment, in the 33rd minute, if I remember correctly. At that point, if Arsenal are able to see out to the halftime, just like similar in Liverpool, not concede that goal prior to halftime, maybe they're in a position where they can reset. So unfortunately, that way it kind of felt in a lot of ways of similar to Liverpool, where it was 2 points dropped, even more so than in the previous week. So it's unfortunate for Arsenal, but it ties us up for definitely an even more interesting Premier League title race down the rest of the season.
Yeah, as Gio mentioned in our last podcast as well, that April 26th match is going to be very, very interesting to see. Now, as we know, there are only 4 points separating these two teams, Gio, and Man City do have a game in hand to play. But yeah, we did see a little bit of a change in the Arsenal team. Zinchenko and Saliba were out due to injury. So Rob Holding, who did start the game at Anfield, did start for Arsenal this week as well, and Kieran Tierney came on for Arsenal as well. But I guess let's go straight into the penalty decision, Gio. I'm sure you've seen sort of the actions leading up to the penalty, potential handball, given or not given. There's been a lot of discussion, and then even towards the penalty, which Paquetá does well to get away from Gabriel. He does get taken down. There is contact, but there is also a hint of simulation there. What were your thoughts on that call, Gio?
Looking back at it, obviously initially watching the game, it's a bang bang call. Even as a football fan, once you hear the noise of the crowd watching the game, you automatically assume that something big happened. And after watching the replay, it did look like a lot of embellishment. As Gabriel was getting close to him, you saw Paqueta's arms almost flailing already. So a little questionable, but I get that there is contact in the box. The ball was missed. Again, he did a great job of getting away from him early and then causing him to make a tough tackle. But yeah, once there was contact, I think, the referee kind of already knew that he wanted to give it. Tough break for Arsenal, obviously, with the handballs and stuff like that. But yeah, that isn't the only chance, they had to almost seal the game. Like, that didn't determine the game. So I don't think Arsenal can look back at that and say, oh, if that penalty didn't happen, it would have been different. Yeah, it would have been different because they wouldn't have scored per se, but Arsenal didn't perform to their peak level in order to, dominate the game that they're used to dominating, really.
And it's interesting you saying they did not perform to their peak level, Mac. As we saw leading up to that penalty, Partey is the person who gave the ball away. I mean, we can still discuss the handball and whatnot, but also immediately after that, a couple minutes after the goals conceded from the penalty, he does give the ball away again. And there's been a little bit of a drop-off there in terms of that performance by Partey, who's been rock solid for basically the whole season up till this point. And I don't know, do we want to mention as well, I don't think, as we know, Saka goes on to take the penalty for Arsenal in the second half. It's 2-1 at this point. He unfortunately misses and then goes on. I think he goes online to apologize to the fans and say, he'll do better. But is that sort of necessary for you, Mac? Sort of, things happen. There's going to be mistakes and whatnot, but what are your thoughts on that situation at all?
So to go in order, in regards to the handball, when Partey kind of was trying to dink it over the oncoming Declan Rice, that for me was more of the clear mistake, because if you look upon review, it's not as if his hands are attached to his body, they are extended. So I'm surprised that part wasn't overturned. Less so about the penalty, because Gabriel you can see Gabriel was going in to make contact, but then did try to pull out. So in some ways he was initiating some of the action. So I think that's a little bit more of bang call, and it's, I guess, more of a toss of a coin there. And I understand VAR not overturning that because it's not an egregious mistake in my opinion, whereas the handball for me is more so. In regards to the penalty, it's odds are eventually he's going to miss. Only in terms of Saka, I would argue, is not a kind of a clinical penalty taker. He hasn't had a long of a track record to be able to kind of display that, to be up there the likes of the Balotellis, the Harry Kanes, the Cristiano Ronaldos, where they come up to the spot and you're expecting them to score in a lot of ways versus not. Whereas about almost 25% of all penalties taken are missed. So is it surprising in some ways where something like that could happen? No. Do I like the apology, let's say, from, I guess, the fan aspect? Yes, in a lot of ways, because he's had a history of doing it. Prior to early on in Arsenal's in his career for Arsenal, I forgot which game, but it was under Unai Emery when he was first coming up. He went online and kind of went out to the fans like, Arsenal Gunners, you deserve better, right? And it kind of garnered a lot of affection to him, where he can see the improvement. Like, this is something that he really cares about. He's always going to try and improve on. So I don't think that's a negative at all, and it only can be a positive. Of course, some fans are going to twist it negative because there's a lot of negative people out there. But overall, you can see how much he cares, how much he wants to be able to play well for the team and the club, and for them to be in the position that they are. So it's good to see from that, but I definitely feel like, as he's shown throughout his career, he has the character where stumbles like this, he's able to kind of move past and come out a better player. So for me, it's only going to kind of give him an uphill trajectory, where he's only going to keep improving, and going forward in these types of situations, he's only going to try to continue to improve.
For sure. That's definitely something we can touch on a little more, but I just wanted to as well touch on West Ham as well, because they are, they perform well. They were able to come back from, as you mentioned, for a 2-0 deficit. And Gio, our boy, Jared Bowen, doing the business for West Ham when they really needed it. Obviously, now West Ham still, only 4 points above the relegation zone, but, making way now. What are your thoughts on that West Ham performance?
Yeah, no, I think it was absolutely key, that they got points. I mean, they're not key, but obviously you want to go out there and perform. And to perform against the top club in the Premier League, very important for them. Just goes to show, how much quality they do have, and they've shown sparks of it. But in that, also in that case, why haven't they showed this quality throughout the season? What's holding them back? So. If you can show this type of quality against, certain clubs where they've shown, the new signings being very cohesive, Paqueta, Rice, and everything like that. So, why hasn't it worked throughout the season as opposed to, certain games here and there? So I mean, brings a lot of questions. But also, it's still a lot of hope for West Ham fans going into next season. If they can stay up, hopefully they do. They have a lot of quality. It'd be a shame for them to fire sale everyone because no one will want to play in the championship, unfortunately, including Paqueta, Rice, Jared Bowen, all these guys. So it's important that they do get results and stay out of the relegation zone.
For sure. Okay, so let's move on now just to discuss, because now we're going to talk about Man City and their 3-1 win against Leicester City. The kind of expected performance, Gio, from Man City. They were able to put Bayern away in their last Champions League game. And really, Haaland, 2 goals, Stones with a banger, great performance all around, even allowing Pep to make a lot of substitutions basically into the second half. Is that sort of what we expected them to do? Just put this tie away and look ahead to their reverse fixture against Bayern?
Yeah, but also, me personally, I don't know if others feel this, but I almost feel like they could have had more, and I feel like they should have put more away. It almost instills that fear into everyone that we as Man City, we're coming for everyone. We are on a roll right now. We have unbeaten in, I think, 9 straight. So yeah, no, I think putting away more, being more, just being more convincing. Not that they weren't convincing, but to really put a stamp on it. They definitely could have won by a wider margin. I feel like by making the subs, you almost kind of let up and let that foot off the gas pedal a little. But I would have loved to see them win like 5-6-1, just to make sure Arsenal has that in the back of the mind going into next week's game, even. Although it being versus, I think, Southampton. The fact of the matter is, we're on your tails, and you better perform, or we're gonna leapfrog you on the 26th.
Yeah. Oh well, that's a very very strong statement that I think, to put words in Gio's mouth, Man City were trying to make. But there were instances, Mac, late into the game where Leicester could have actually scored a couple and made it a little more difficult than it was eventually for Man City. What were your thoughts on Leicester now, and that performance now that they have a new manager and then they're still in sort of that relegation battle? What are your thoughts?
Leicester, for the first 45 minutes, for 60 minutes, really, I would argue until Kelechi Iheanacho came on in a lot of ways, or even further along when they made more subs when they brought on Mendy and Pratt, it looked like a team that kind of was accepting that they were going to lose, because in a couple different situations, to be able to highlight for the first couple goals for Manchester City, just to be able to start off with the first goal, you watch Ndidi, who's initially marking John Stones, but then completely loses track of him in the second phase of the corner kick, not just being alert, not being awake. And similarly in the third goal, where it was, I forgot who was trying to pass him the ball, but the pass was a little bit short. And he went in very soft. KDB won the ball off of him, went around him, and Ndidi on a counterattack, 3-on-2, with Haaland right in front of KDB. You got to bring him down, but was weak in the mentality, and just kind of allowed the midfield to be overrun by City. And of course, if you have that situation with Haaland, he's going to be able to put it away. So it was a lot of mistakes that continued to pile up for Leicester, where they were more so, I felt like, accepting defeat, which going into this game, of course, the assumption is you're going to lose. This is a free hit, but there should have been more of a better mentality playing under your new manager, Dean Smith, that there should have been something to be able to prove, something to be able to come in as a team, to be able to make sure, hey, we're here to be able to compete, we're trying to be able to stay up. But it really kind of, they set themselves up for failure very early on in the match, where they gave them such a mountain to climb that Man City completely turned off. And it was kind of highlighted if you listen to Calvin Phillips, his interview after the game, where he was joking about his mistake that he made with Ederson that led to the Iheanacho goal, where I was kind of like, hey, I had a howler, my bad for Ederson, and we kind of let them in, ha ha ha. So they were taking you literally as a joke with these substitutions, right? So and of all people, the guy that we know the game's over if he's coming on, he's taking you as a joke. It's very unfortunate, because if a couple of those moments down towards the end of the game went their way, where that Madison 2-on-1 that goes in, it's 3-2. Iheanacho, obviously this situation could have been very different. Him hitting the post, it could have been a 3-3 game, right? That's not far out of reason. And if you played with the full mentality to compete for the entire game, it could have changed. So it's very disappointing from a Leicester perspective, their performance, but also credit to Man City where they were able to, for the first 7 minutes, okay, we'll play the game, and the last 20 doesn't matter anymore because we've already killed you off, right? So it's from a Leicester perspective, you got to be disappointed, but from Man City perspective, exactly kind of the results you needed to set yourself up going into the stretch of the season.
And as we are discussing this game, we do have to mention Erling Haaland, 32 goals in the Premier League so far with 8 games remaining. Man, Gio, how would you feel if you're Julian Alvarez, you won the World Cup, you made the big move, you're performing well, scoring goals, but Erling Haaland is in front of you in that pecking order. What a guy. What are your thoughts on that record and how it's been so far for those Man City strikers?
To be quite honest, although he plays for Man City, it's been an absolute joy to watch as a football fan. Beyond being a Man U fan, I am a football fan. So seeing these things happen, being able to live through these things and live through this history is definitely fun. Whether Julian Alvarez is happy or not, you can't score the type of goals he scores. He's bigger than you. He's a bigger target. He's going to score more athletic goals. He's more athletic than you. And the best he can do if he wants to become, a starting striker, a starting 11, the main man up front, it might not be at City. Yes, Man City will develop you into a great player and create great value for you, for a big club to come knocking. But that might not be the case if Erling Haaland decides to stay there for a long period of time. Granted, Erling Haaland could be elsewhere, as he said, he wants to win in many different leagues and play in many different countries. So this might not be his end all be all. So you still have a chance. But that's not to take anything from Julian Alvarez, of course, World Cup winner and been scoring very clutch goals at that. So we see the quality, but the way Haaland is able to score, the type of athletic goals he's able to score, he just definitely gets the nod over Julian Alvarez.
Yeah, just unfortunately, he is playing behind the best number 9 in the world at the moment. But I guess that really leaves us with, I'll read out the next fixtures. Arsenal face Southampton in the league on Friday. And then Man City have 2 games before they face Arsenal, which is the following week. Bayern in the Champions League, and then Sheffield in the FA Cup in the weekend. Mac, there's only a couple games to go. How do these teams line up, I guess, for the respective match upcoming?
This fixture that we kind of been talking about, it's going to continue to building excitement, because personally I understand Arsenal, this is the first time I think if I remember correctly, if I have the stat correctly, the first time in Premier League history where a team has been up 2-0 in the first half and went on to not win either of the games in a row in Premier League history back to back. So I think they're going to come out with a very strong performance against Southampton, and I think that could be a very difficult game for Southampton to be able to foresee getting anything from them. So in all expectation, Arsenal are going to be on maximum points going into that fixture, with both teams coming out, and Arsenal in some ways maybe trying not to lose the game, but Man City knowing they need to win that game, really. So I feel like it's setting ourselves up potentially for a classic, something in the likes of Liverpool Man City from the last couple of years, but I think both teams are going to come out these last 3 games for them. I wouldn't be surprised if Man City win their 2 respective games and Arsenal win their 1. And that match at Etihad is kind of, in a lot of ways, a 6-pointer and potentially for all the marbles. So overall, very, very excited to see what happens. And hopefully these 2 teams, they stay healthy so we can kind of get a full kind of tilt matchup in that game.
Okay, I guess, Gio, how excited are you for that match, just to wrap it up?
Listen. I had previously booked a car maintenance servicing that day, but I might not be able to make it because although it's early in the morning, I have to mentally prepare myself. This is the game of the season. I don't care if Man U is playing whatever. This is the game of the season, boys. And to anybody listening, yeah, this is the game of the season. There's no other game that tops this game. This pretty much will decide the title winners. Again, like Max said, it is almost a 6-point swing. With the game in hand, win the form that City is in. How do you bet against this team? They are a well-oiled machine at this point. They have what a lot of teams lack throughout Europe, throughout the Premier League, and that's pedigree. They understand their assignment. Nobody is going to try and outshine one another. They are very cohesive. But yeah, same with Arsenal. All those words also apply to Arsenal, which makes it that much greater of a game. And it's it's the master and the grasshopper. So can there be a better game? I doubt it. So everybody, just call in. If I was working, I'd call in. If my employer is listening to this, I'm joking, but I'm not. So I mean, anybody, just do yourselves a favor and watch this game.
No. You know what? It was sort of like, I think very much like the Liverpool City of last year. It's very, very fun, and it's a great advertisement for the league that there's such a big game, first and second, to basically decide the title. Because in a lot of seasons, there isn't that chance where it would be first versus second. It might be like they face their respective teams and then see how the running goes. But yeah, this one I think will be watched more than some Champions League games this season. So very, very exciting. We're going to take one quick break here, guys, and then we'll be back to talk about some European roundup for the Premier League. So stay with us. Welcome back to Also Footy, guys. We're going to continue our podcast now, discussing some of the European positions in the Premier League. And interesting stat that Mac noted for us is 12 points separates 8th through 3rd in the Premier League, with between 29 to 31 games played by all the teams. From these results, I'm just going to read out the results from the weekend. Aston Villa beat Newcastle 3-0. Bournemouth beat Spurs 3-2. Man U beat Nottingham Forest 2-0. Brighton beat Chelsea 2-1. And just today, time of recording, Liverpool beat Leeds 6-1. I think you guys think you know which game I want to pick, but I'm actually going to pick Aston Villa 3, Newcastle 0. And I'm going to go first. This game was very, very, very eye-opening for me. As we previewed in our previous podcast, a lot riding on this game. Newcastle and Aston Villa were really the teams in form, apart from Arsenal and City, going into this game. And Emery, what a performance he was able to bring out from this Aston Villa team, keeping a clean sheet from Aston Villa, and even, basically being the only team that was looking to win that game. A lot of chances, Ollie Watkins getting on the score sheet, and Emery, even after the game, coming out and saying that top 6 might be a challenge and a possibility. So I guess quickly, Mac, what are your thoughts on this game?
I thought you're spot on in terms of this. In terms of going in, we highlighted and previewed the fixture, but I think the result definitely showed how good Unai Emery's team has gotten over the last couple of weeks in regards to their performances in the Premier League. They're now won 5 straight, which is the first time Aston Villa have ever done it since 1998, which I think I was 5, Gio was 4, Ray, you were 3? If I got it correctly? So that's quite a long time in terms of considering how old we all are now, since Aston Villa have been in this run of the form in the league. So it's great to see them being in this position, and they're definitely in a team on the up under Unai Emery. I think the question really for them is, are they going to keep scoring? And the person that they're really relying on that is Ollie Watkins. He's been in the form of his life, and it'll be interesting to see if this is just form, or is this kind of his permanent class that he's going to be able to show in the Premier League, because there's been a lot of hope for him for being an England player. So hopefully for him, he's able to continue the run of form that he's on, and he's able to kind of establish himself as potentially the next best English striker right behind Harry Kane. Overall, fascinating result, and this further mucks up really the top 8, the European positions between 3 to 8, because not just Aston Villa kind of shot up even further, but Newcastle's kind of dropping in, closing that gap. So overall, this result made the rest of the season so much more interesting, and I'm very happy to see it.
Gio, quickly, your thoughts on this game and perhaps that Newcastle performance?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna mention, as much as we can praise Villa and the run of form, I think we have to talk about Newcastle and what it is inconsistency. They want to be great, but how do they stay great? And it comes down to consistency. Obviously, they do miss Almiron, and that added depth that they've definitely went out there and got. But if you want to be great in this league, you have to be consistent. And look, they've achieved a lot. And if the season ended today, I think they'd be absolutely ecstatic at what they have achieved this season, making a cup final, squeezing into the Champions League. How can that possibly be a bad thing? I think they take this loss. Obviously, it's it hurts, but just take it as a loss. Whether a team wins 6-0, whether a team wins 1-0, it's one game. It's 3 points gone, but you're still in a fantastic position to make European football. You just have to move on to the next. You can't let this loss kind of drag on into the next. Villa is a team that's very hot right now, so you can't really base this one performance and think, okay, we're really bad. No, you're not really bad. You just had a bad game. And Villa was just playing downhill football, which is very hard to stop. And a team of that confidence level right now, everything just seems so easy to them. So it's a tough one, but you move on to next week.
Yeah, and Gio, I'm going to throw it right back to you, but just before we mention that, I love how you mentioned Aston Villa were playing downhill football. 15 goals in the Premier League for Ollie Watkins, 11 in his last 12. And I think on Match of the Day, I saw that he had the most goal involvements behind Erling Haaland since the World Cup. That just shows you sort of the way he's in. But Gio, what other games stood out for you this weekend?
I think you guys know what I would want to talk about. And it's right. Shout out to my boys, Bournemouth. Look, Spurs did it to them the last game. Guess what? Things come full circle, boys. Bournemouth never gave up. I think the quality of goals that Bournemouth scored were way higher of the ones Spurs scored. Obviously, Spurs got the cut back from Perisic to Son. Obviously, bounced off a Bournemouth defender. Unfortunate, but the way Bournemouth was able to stay in the game, create their chances, and again those little dinkers over the keeper in tight spaces, those are shockingly hard to do, folks. So Solanke had a game of his career, played fantastic. I would say definitely probably one of the games of his season. And yeah, just overall, Bournemouth just is not a team to die, and you can't count out. And they proved that many times this season. Obviously, sometimes they fell short, but just the willingness to fight, and now, like I said, they've jumped up 6 points clear of the bottom three. That allows them to play with a lot more confidence now. That they're not 1 point shy from the bottom, and then having to worry about if we don't score here, we're going to be down with the bottom three. This allows them to play with a lot more confidence, so it'd be more interesting to see what they can do.
Oh, great shout. Bournemouth picking up points right at the most important part of the season. Spurs, though, unfortunately, I just don't understand what's going on back there in terms of defense and even building up from the back, because I think they're just really relying on Kane, Son, and Kulusevski to create for them. From the back, getting pressed and making mistakes. You are Spurs, and Spurs fans will consider themselves as a top 6 team. The way they perform right now could really see them drop out of those positions. What did you think, Mac?
I think to your credit, and Gio, we talked about this jokingly even before the podcast. You had called Bournemouth in terms of, they're a team that can score a goal against a bigger club. What can they do against Spurs? Love to see them do well. And you were spot on, and you got your hopes and dreams, so that's fantastic for you. But I think the interesting part for me, kind of lining up how these teams shaped out, is that Spurs, considering the lack of injuries right now, I think right now in terms of who you have in your starting 11, they're really just missing the one midfielder of Bentancur, and there's such a degree of drop-off when they have the ball, because they had a decent amount of possession in this game. They should have been a team a little bit more on the front foot, but they seem bereft of ideas, where in terms of how they want to break out, how they want to build the possession, there is no key philosophy. It really is just, okay, when the other team gets the ball, if we have the chance to counter, let's all run in a straight line. We can kind of figure it out, because Kane and Son have been playing together for so long. We know what each other really want to do. But in terms of what's a consistent way of ways we want to be able to attack, ways that we want to be able to break down the different kind of areas of pitch of opposition, there is no consistency there. There's no plan there. It is a team, as I said, a breadth of ideas. My favorite part about the game, though, is the fact Richarlison is still yet to score a Premier League goal for Tottenham, having his third one called back. If I remember correctly, I think one was because of a handball, two were because of offside. It's absolutely perfect. I just wish he celebrated this one a little bit harder, so it could have been called back, and he would have been hurt a little bit more. That would have been perfect for me, because he's been as disappointing signing in the Premier League this season for any of the bigger teams in comparison to anybody else. So even though I just like the both of you, I do enjoy Spurs kind of losing a little bit. It's kind of a little bit of fun, not as much as Gio, but I do enjoy it. I especially love when a player like Richarlison, who thinks the world of himself, kind of shits the bed. So love to see it.
Hey, that was quite disappointing, considering that he could have actually won it for them with a header at the end. But hey, just goes to show his sort of season lack of confidence and just not able to finish it when it mattered. But Mac, last but not least, let's hear your game that took you by surprise the most.
So for this one, again, I'm going to go along themes of, well, what team do I find most enjoyable, but also I also enjoy seeing them do very, very poorly. It has to be Brighton versus Chelsea. Brighton beating Chelsea 2-1. Oh, Graham Potter. I wish I would. There's an amount to my bank account, not all of it, but there is an amount to my bank account I'd be willing to give to have watched that game with Graham Potter and just like pick his brain throughout the entire thing, because this Chelsea team is porous, and the Brighton team he coached previously is absolutely phenomenal. If Conor Gallagher's shot early in the first half wasn't deflected to be able to kind of give them a Chelsea initial lead, the Chelsea could be in such a worse position than they are theoretically as right now, because the only improvement really that we've seen is they've scored a scuff goal. That's it. There was very little fight. This Brighton team dominated in the shots. I think they had 26 shots, like 8 on target. Should have scored quite a few more goals. Duncan Ferguson was not Duncan Ferguson. It's one of the Fergusons.
Evan Ferguson.
Yes. Ferguson was an absolute kind of beast in the box before he came off injured. Matoma was leaving Wesley Fofana left in the dust continuously. Really comes to question is he going to be a good signing? Because if you're getting dusted like that, like multiple times throughout the game, it's rough out there for you, brother. So it's not going to be good. And Brighton and continue to show the quality of kind of the recruitment, because Enciso, a signing that off for less, I think it was like £10 million last summer, comes in, hits the post in the first couple of minutes, then scores an absolute kind of banger from 25 yards out, top post, top ins. It's overall phenomenal. And my favorite part is former Man U and Arsenal striker Daniel Welbeck getting on the score sheet for Brighton early on to be able to kind of get them back into the game. So overall, this Brighton team is phenomenal. Absolutely love to see them playing this way, and it's going to keep getting better. But even better than that is how poor Chelsea have been. And to wrap up is Chelsea in the last 4 home Premier League games, 2 draws, 2 losses. This is the worst run of form at home since the 2015-2016 season, which they finished the season 1 draw, 4 losses prior to the end of the season. So they're absolute trash. And in that season, they actually finished 10th. And then after this game against Brighton, Todd Bowley, I don't know if you saw the reports that got leaked out today, he went into the locker room and, quote, said the season's been embarrassing for Chelsea. And if you're saying that to your players who spent £600 million on almost over half a bill, And you're saying that to them? Oh, oof, oof. It's great. Love this game. Sorry, Gio. What are your thoughts about that individual game, or about where either of these teams are?
Very happy for Brighton. Look, again, nothing is new with this Chelsea team. They still don't know who the best starting 11 team that they could put out is, and Graham Potter couldn't figure it out, and this, I'm not going to bet on Frank Lampard to figure it out. So, you know, it's really a matter of they're just dragging on the season. They wish the season ended then and there, just so they could go back to the drawing board. I mean, Graham Potter, I think, should be very happy he got let go. Collect a check and just watch the barn fire from far away, and then see his former team beat them. I think he's had a great weekend. Let's just say that. So
Hey,
nothing new with Chelsea. Still same old Chelsea. I couldn't expect anything more or less from them. For all those Chelsea fans, or as I like to say, Chris, good luck to you. You will need it. You will need it.
and I love how you mentioned that. Nothing new, because my question, if we talked about this game in full, would be, did we expect a different result? And I think we actually generally would have said no. We knew Brighton was going to win. And yeah, Chelsea did steal that first goal. But as we saw, it played out. Brighton were the better team, deservedly the team that won. Gio?
But also, just the fact that Brighton got cheated out of a draw, the week before, they weren't gonna come. They weren't gonna come into this game and expect to be walked all over again. They had a fire, in the pits of their stomach. They wanted to win, and clear enough, the better team and the better coach team and the hungrier team won the game at the end of the day. You, like Max said, you were very fortunate to get your one goal, and you still couldn't take advantage of it. So Chelsea, you got a lot of problems. This offseason is going to be very important for them. So again, good luck.
I know we're going on about this game a little longer, but I did also want to mention, yeah, the season is pretty much done, but you still got to play for at least yourself. Conceding possession, Brighton, I think, ended up with over 70% possession at Stamford Bridge. Granted, Chelsea did rest a couple players because they are facing Madrid in midweek. Still, on paper, and in terms of the expectance, the expected performance for Chelsea was, they're gonna dominate possession, and Brighton are the better team right now in terms of just the form. But Chelsea players, they are still up there, and to concede that much possession at home, at this point, you're definitely not playing for a manager, not playing for the team, and not even playing for yourself. So just disappointing as a whole to see that from those Chelsea players. But I guess we do have a little more time, so let's quickly touch on Man U 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Joe, that I think was a very, very important win for Man U, considering Newcastle, as we touched on, dropped some points. And so a game that potentially could have been a potential banana skin on the road. They could have slipped up and even dropped some points here. Ultimately got the win, and that's all that needed, considering the amount of injuries and players out that Man U have. What were your thoughts?
No, again, very important win, like you said, especially coming off that poor performance midweek. This was very necessary. Had they dropped any points, I think fans would be up in arms, and again, media would be all over Man U. But the fact that the other players that didn't expect to really stepped up was important. Martial, fairly decent game. Of course, Anthony with the tap in, but the fact that a guy like Diogo Dalot scored a goal was huge too. Obviously, there are points of the game where I'm sure a lot of Man U fans thought, okay, yeah, this is the turning point. This is it. This is where we lose it. With it, with Harry Maguire in particular, just to name one guy, I hate to single him out, but though the fact that he's playing on this team is shocking to me. And the fact that we all thought that he was having a very solid run of form, like, coming on as a sub, playing those minutes, but still looking quite decent. You kind of expect a little more from him. So disappointing there in that sense. But for other players to step up and score those goals. But I would still love to see, I know our friend, huge Man U fan, super biased, Cav, would love to see Sancho shoot a little more. Agreed. Would love to see him put that curl on the ball and see where he can put it. But I think it will come. I think he just sees passes more, and if he does see it, like you can't really fault him for attempting them. So if he sees a better opportunity for his teammates, then he's gonna try and make that pass, which you kind of want on your team. But it's good to get goals for him as well. So would like to see him shoot a little more.
Yeah, a player that shoots a lot was Anthony, who did shoot a lot in this game, but got a goal and an assist. So ultimately, decent performance there. Matt, what were your thoughts on this Man U Nottingham Forest fixture?
I'm surprised Gio didn't start off with, "Hey, Arsenal, watch Man U hold a 2-0 lead. Take notes." Like I'm surprised. I'm surprised you didn't start off with that, to be honest, Gio. But this was as comfortable a 2-0 win as you can really get. Forest were absolute porous, absolutely pathetic, and kind of really not in the game at all. And if they keep this up, they're going to be going down. Something I would love to see, considering how much money they spent and what happens with the players that they did sign. That would, just for me, would be very, very interesting to find out what happens. But because in the last 10 Premier League games, they've not won a single one, drawn 3, lost 7, and I think they haven't. And in addition, and unless they've scored, and they've never had like even the 0-0 draw where they played well enough defensively to burn something out. And every game they've conceded thus far this season, they've lost or have at least tied. So they've never really had a strong defensive record. The good part for Manchester United, the first kind of hurdle to be able to get through in terms of this Maguire Lindelof reunited and it feels so good center back pairing, was able to get past that. Rashford not playing, still able to get past that, so that's good there. And it really puts them in the position because other teams around them drop points, where this next Premier League fixture they're facing against Tottenham, who prior to that are facing Newcastle. So going into that game, it could be, if they win this, they could see themselves clearly in a top 4 position no matter what for the rest of the season. So they're in a pivotal point of the season. So picking up this win, even though it was comfortable, was easy, and was expected, was absolutely vital. And I think it should, hopefully, if players do come back from injury, a la Varane, a la Rashford, come back for that game against Tottenham and see that out, they could be in a position, like I said, to securely be in the top 4 for sure. Versus right now, they're heavy favorites, but they just need kind of that final seal of approval, that final kind of hurdle through the Premier League.
Okay, well, just to round up this part of the podcast, last game is Liverpool 6, Leeds 1. Great result for Liverpool, but I feel like we don't learn much because Leeds were quite poor in this game. Liverpool did, just rack up the goals, but just to, I guess, just finish off with a more interesting note, I think, Mac, you wanted us to sort of discuss what we predict will happen in sort of these European positions from essentially 3rd to 8th. A lot to play for with, these games. These teams potentially even facing each other. Could, Newcastle, Spurs sort of in the position that they have now, could they throw it away? Could Aston Villa, Brighton make a push for those top positions? So, Mac, I guess let me hear your thoughts. You can go first.
If I were to re-predict ordering out from 3 to 8, what I think would be for the rest of the season, and this is going to kind of stray heavily from what I had at the beginning of the season in some ways, I'm going to keep Manchester United at 3rd. I think that if they pick a positive result or Tottenham drop anything, they're pretty secure there. So I'm going to keep them at 3rd. The rest is really where it gets interesting for me. I think what I would like to see, if you were to ask me what I would want to have Aston Villa 4th, Newcastle 5th, Brighton 7th. Manchester United 3rd, Newcastle. Wait, did I do that right? My apologies. Yeah, sorry. Manchester United, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Brighton, Liverpool, then Tottenham. That's what I think. If you would ask me what will happen for the rest of the season, in that order, I think Spurs, considering how poor they've played under the new manager, I think that potentially continuously slide. Everyone kind of moves a rung up below them. Manchester United stays the same. That's what I predict for the rest of the season. I took the long way there. I apologize. I just had to wrap my head around what I was saying because I'm so surprised how Spurs are so trash. But great.
Yeah, definitely not sort of the point of the season where they would have wanted this downfall. I am very interested to see sort of how the third to fifth will finish. I do think Aston Villa have a chance to sneak up in those positions, and Brighton have 2 games in hand, so very much on brand there, Mac. I think Spurs can fall further, especially now facing Newcastle and Man U in those vital games. I predict it'll be Man U, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Brighton, and then Spurs, and then Liverpool. I'm just not convinced Liverpool have turned it around at this point. This result, I don't think we learned a lot from it. And so, yeah, I'm all for that Spurs downfall. Gio, to finish it off.
Okay, so let's see. I would like to see Man U where they are. I would like to see Newcastle where they are, which is 4th. I want to see Villa in 5th. Brighton 6th. And Spurs 7th, Liverpool 8th. Although Liverpool is in good form.
You have the same thing as Ray then.
Yeah. And that's what I want to see, but you guys want to hear my logic behind that?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. Okay. So obviously I want Newcastle back in European football, whether it be Europa or Champions League, whichever that ends up being. Great. Would love to see Villa in there, just to see fresh faces in European football. And then I think I have Brighton 6th, right? Wait.
Yeah, you had Brighton 6th. You had Brighton 6th, yeah.
Brighton 6th, and then I have
Tottenham 7th, Liverpool 8th. Yeah.
Okay. Because I have a little respect for Liverpool, I'd rather them not have to deal with the Conference League. I would just have Spurs deal with the Conference League. Do we want to play? Do we not want to play? If we lose, do we get bashed by the fans? I want them to have those troubles. So that's my rationale there. Liverpool will be fine in 8th because they'll still get players who want to play for the crest that is Liverpool. They'll still get signings and hopefully get their way back up to Champions League football, which is very doable, I think. But Spurs, hey, man, I just love to watch the barn burn. So, hey, that's where I'm at in life right now.
Hey, I love it. And speaking of that, Champions League, we're going to discuss that next. So let's take one last break here, boys, and then we'll be back with Champions League. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We're going to finish off today's podcast just previewing the second leg of the quarterfinals for the Champions League. Really, I think there's only one game that there's still a lot to play for. That's Napoli at home to AC Milan in Naples this time. Previous game saw AC Milan win 1-0 at the San Siro, but Mac, now Napoli have Osimhen back, which will be a huge bonus. Plus, on the weekend, they did rest a lot of their starters ahead of this Champions League tie. So let us hear your thoughts on this upcoming game.
I think this game is going to be very interesting. It's really the only one that I'm going to give 100% of my attention to, considering how both teams have performed and the other games around them. It really could go either way. AC Milan, they definitely needed to come out with the previous fixture with the win, in my opinion, to kind of have some hope because Napoli have been so good. The interesting part is the AC Milan has had the number of this team. Previously, within the last 2 months, they've won 4-0 and the 1-0 result in the first leg of this fixture. So they're in a good position. The downside for Napoli is, as you said, Osimhen is back. Played on the weekend, came off a sub, and even Kvaratskhelia, Zielinski, Lobotka, and Osimhen himself, who have probably been arguably 4 of their top 6 players this season, came on as subs. But 2 of their other best players, Anguissa and Kim Min-jae, are both out of this game due to, I think, yellow card accumulation. So it's going to be a tough matchup for them in that way where you're missing arguably your best defender, one of your regular starters in midfield, to see if you can still come out and perform against a team that, like you said, has had your number. if you would ask me who I'd pick between the two, I'm going to lean Napoli. They're at home. Odds are, I think they have a 56% chance of winning this game in terms of the odd makers had them coming out going into this. So I'm going to lean them, just given the fact that they're home, given the fact Osman's back. So the goal threat between him and Krasavalia will be there. Because even though Politano did play in the last game, he's definitely not. If you ask who's the third, the kind of the third friend in that group, it definitely is Politano, where the reliance really has been on that left hand side between Osman playing centrally and Krasavalia on the left wing. So for them, that's how I see this game playing out, where they'll probably edge out a little bit more, still be very comfortable possession, but overall, we have potential for a very exciting game.
Yeah, for sure. Especially at Napoli, the way they've been sort of performing all season, and being able to watch a couple of their games, especially when they face Liverpool, they can really turn on in that stadium, and they're gonna definitely be wanting to take revenge after losing 2 back-to-back games against AC Milan. Osman will definitely be creating a lot of havoc to that partnership of Kier and Tomori. I still think there are some questions about them at this point, and so a lot to look out for that. Big miss because of Kim and Anguissa missing out. But Gio, could we see Tanguy Ndombele, a current Spurs player who's on loan, do the business for Napoli now that he's no longer at Spurs? What are your thoughts on this upcoming game?
I hope so. I hope so in the sense that, once he does win a trophy and he goes back to Spurs, he can tell them what the feeling is like, So, maybe that might change things for Spurs. But, hey, man, at least a Spur does win a trophy at the end of the day. It might not be Harry Kane, but he technically is still a Spurs player. But, to be honest, with Victor Osimhen back, obviously, it'd be interesting how AC Milan goes about this game. Do they commit and try to get that second early to try to kind of put Napoli on their heels, or do they sit back and kind of almost like how we described, play the almost Jose-esque style? After they scored the first goal, they parked the bus, and now I think they sort of almost can't push up too high just because they have that counterattack, and every time the ball, that over ball is played to Osimhen, something typically happens, and it's usually a goal for Napoli. So they have to be very careful about how they push and how far that back line does kind of creep up, because with Victor Osimhen back, that target is huge. So they have to be very careful of the moves they make.
I love the shout of sitting back and hitting him on the counter, because just like Napoli have Kvaratskhelia, AC Milan have Rafael Leao, who on his day, don't think anyone on Napoli or even anyone in the Serie A can guard him. He's just that explosive, that strong, that powerful, that skillful to create his own goal and win it. So that'll be interesting to watch. I guess just to quickly touch on the remaining games, though, Gio, Benfica, Chelsea, and Bayern have an uphill battle against their respective Champions League quarterfinal matchups. Out of these three, I guess, is there a team that you think could come back, or do you think it's sort of out of the realm of possibility? Give us your takes on sort of these last 3 games.
I mean, if I had to pick one, and I say had to because I don't really want to pick one. If I had to pick one, it would be Benfica. I think at the end of the day, Inter, they are good, but they do have their holes. Their ability to close out a game, for example, with Lautaro Martinez, who evidently is not a very clinical player, as we saw at the World Cup. But can those missed opportunities come back and haunt them? I think that's very possible. I think there's they do have players on the team that could do have a bit of a temper, and that if Benfica is able to frustrate them and get a goal early and kind of put the pressure on them, a card here and there can go in Benfica's favor. And one of those players that do have a little bit of a temper and has been sent off before is Barella. And he's going to be a key piece for them in order if they want to seal the game as well. You know, his attack is going to be crucial to open up for the other guys. And so, yeah, if I had to pick one team to come back, it would be Benfica.
Okay. I guess same question to you, Mac.
So I agree with Gio. He's definitely picked the correct answer in terms of if you were to ask if I would rank these, is Benfica has the most likelihood. But I want to twist it a little bit. Who do I want to see come back? This may surprise you. I want to see Chelsea come back because it would be absolutely hilarious if they're in a semifinal matchup, theoretically, with Manchester City. That's Man City get the treble in all likelihood. Now we're talking arguably maybe about the, or at least in the final once again, and we're talking about one of the greatest sides in footballing history for one given season, given how well they played. As well as Real Madrid really would have to go home after losing La Liga and Champions League, the two most important competitions in their calendar, and not getting close to really either one of them theoretically if they lose out this matchup after having a 2-0 lead. As well as then I think if this Real Madrid side loses against this Chelsea team, people will start losing jobs, people start getting fired, people are getting cut. Because if you lose against this poor of a team, if with a 2-0 lead, you deserve kind of like some sort of corporal punishment in all likelihood. That's how I would look at it if I'm a Real Madrid fan, considering how bad Chelsea have been. So I think it would be hilarious if Chelsea somehow, it's a 2-2 game, goes into extra time, someone trips over somebody else, ends at the back of Real Madrid net. It would be hilarious. So that's who I would want to see come back.
Okay. Gio, you had a thought?
I'm sorry, I know you're both Real Madrid fans, so that also, I would enjoy that for that reason as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I did see a post where it showed a video of Real Madrid arriving in London, getting off the plane, and they're all wearing all black. What attire? What kind of setting do you wear all black to?
A funeral.
Yes.
There you go. I obviously it'd be fun to watch. A comeback. Look, I'm a football fan. If Real Madrid loses, I don't lose any sleep at night. But I can't stress this enough. What else is new with Chelsea except for the losing? Like, I'm very curious of who they put out. I think that's more interesting than the game itself. Is who Frank Lampard decides to take a gamble on this week.
The only way I don't want Chelsea to win, to be honest, is if Real Madrid like hammer them 5-0, and it goes then Real Madrid have scored more goals in England than Chelsea. That's the type of stat I want to have, or I want to see if Real Madrid were to come out and win. I want to see a big shellacking, so we can start putting out that number, because that would be fun.
Yeah, I love the shout there, Gio. You don't know sort of what team you're going to see. I'm interested to see what team Bayern puts out. Will Leroy Sané play? Will Sadio Mane play after sort of their bust up? Will they start with a striker? I really hope they don't start a double pivot with Goretzka and Kimmich, because that's really negating anything that they'll really look to create, because they need a goal. And then on the break, you have Haaland that's going to beat any of those defenders in a race 1-on-1. So perfect match to sort of I wouldn't expect City to sit back, but perfect match to sit back, because you have a 3-0 lead and you can afford to. So all of these games will be quite interesting to see. We're definitely going to cover all of that in our next podcast. So we're going to conclude for today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us, again, will be Friday, when we touch on the Champions League quarterfinals, and then also preview this weekend's Premier League game. So on that note, thank you, Mac.
Peace out.
Thank you, Gio.
Hello, Madrid.
See you guys soon.